सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So we kind of begin the teaching from today's class. We started it at the end of the last class, but now I think we will devote most of our time, almost all of the time, in the teaching itself. So we have spent some time looking at the texts and what text to use and some introduction about it. So as I was mentioning before, it is kind of like looking for the right mirror. Which mirror should be used? Which room should we put it in? All those kinds of things. But now, having done all of that, now it is time to look into the mirror. And so even the text that we will go over should translate into an idea of yourself. And so that's why I think I chose the words somewhat consciously about the advanced introduction to Vedanta based on Sri Gaudapadacharya's Karika on the Mandukya Upanishad. So this was an uppermost in my mind. And so what it really means, again, this is just to start the class today and reiterating it. Advanced meaning that it is meant for people who already have gone through quite a bit of study of the Vedantic texts. Some of the terms are very familiar, most of the terms are very familiar to them. Concepts are at least heard. And so now we can start to do commentary on it based on the fact that you've already done quite a bit of that. So that's the advanced part. And it means that there will be quite a bit of technical analysis, trying to get fine-tuning our minds so that the subtle aspects of the teaching become more visible to our mind. So that's the advanced part. The introduction part of this advanced introduction means, and this is very important, is that all of this technical jargon, if you want, not really a jargon, it's technical aspects of the learning, should translate into something that you can relate to on a day-to-day basis. And so that's the beauty of these Mahatmas, is that they're steeped into the intricate details of what this whole thing is, but then it has to come up to a very simple, recognizable experience of everyday living, and that's the introduction part of it. So we will do that. In this regard, I will just now mention it to you, and then we will follow it up with it. That since I am following the textbook of Swami Akhandananda Ji as the text, and I like this because this is a very, very good translation of his discourses to a very informed public. And so it is kind of like a bhashya where he's talking in terms that people can understand. Certainly he appeals to me very much. And so I'd like to, in any way, just translate that for your benefit. Now, in doing so, as I mentioned, and this is the last thing we'll do before we start the teaching itself, is that keeping with the structure of the advanced introduction, we are not going to go through in the entire teaching a kind of like a beginning and an end, a beginning, intermediate, end. It isn't going to be like that. Then what I find is in his teaching is that he gives you the answer right away. He gives you what is to be understood. And he doesn't wait for that, and we will see that today itself. So you start with that in terms of what is it that we need to do. But then you analyze it. So it's kind of like sadhya and sadhana, but very effective. And very consistent from the beginning to the end. And that is the style of the Karika. So anyway, so keep that in mind as we... And so what that means is that we should not be shy of giving the final answer at the end only. It should be done right away. Really everything is all about... The equation is already known to us, but the question is, how do we get there? Tattvamasi is the equation, that you and Ishvara are really one and the same. That is the equation, that is the final answer. Then the question is, well, but then how do we derive it? Because it doesn't seem very probable. Yes, that derivation has to be confirmed, has to be given. All right, so with that, we will begin, as we did last week, on the first of the two prayer vakyas given by Adi Shankara in his bhashya on the Mandukya Karika. So first of the two, and so we saw that. I hope you got copies that were posted on the AVC website. It's okay if you don't get it, that's okay. But if you're interested in looking at it in front of you, then I borrowed that from Swami Gambhirananda's book. And later on, when you get the books from Swami Dayanandji and Swami Akhandanandaji, those verses will be given. Here, for example, I'll just read from Swami Akhandananda's book. The first of the prayer book, Mangala Charanam, which goes like this. Pragyana amshu pratanaihi sthirachara nikara vyapibhi vyapya lokan bhuktva bhogan sthavishtan punarapi dhishanos bhasitan kamajanyan. Now just the first two lines, just look at that. Okay. So this whole prayer, well, I might as well just verbalize the last two lines also to complete it. Pītvā sarvān visheshan swapiti madurabhung mayaya bhojayan naha maya sankhya turiyam param amritam ajam brahma tat yat tat natosmi. So yat tat natosmi, we can start with that. So here Adi Shankara praises. Natosmi means I bow to you. I bow to you by beginning to appreciate how you work, how do you operate. I see the presence of you in terms of the understanding of your Shrishti, your creation. And it is an amazing creation, and I am beginning to understand how you do it, and therefore this is an amazing fact. This is what his prayer is, really. The whole thing is, that's why they say that the best prayer is the understanding of the person and the work of the person. Well, we have gone through this example in many of our previous classes, that suppose you have a very great scientist like Einstein visiting a college, let's say. And this is a big function, Einstein visiting Berkeley. You see, Berkeley is not an ordinary thing, and so you have a huge crowd and all that. Who introduces him? You could have a kind of valedictory student introduce Einstein and say, sir, and what they will do? They will say, sir, you are so great, and you have done relativity, and it's amazing. We are very happy to have you. Like that, something like that would be. That's one introduction. The other introduction would be someone who has already won a Nobel Prize, who is a physicist of one of the highest. And when he introduces scientists, he visualizes all the subtle work that Einstein has done to explain the relativity theory and how light and matter, how matter and energy, all those kinds of things. He appreciates it. So his introduction would be, I am amazed. Thank you for coming here just to see you, and what you have done is just something. And then he actually tells him what you have done. So similarly to that, Adi Shankara praising Brahman, Ishvara, saying, wow, this is absolutely amazing. And so then he proceeds to describe the amazingness of this Ishvara's work in two verses, number 1 and number 2. And so one is Vidhi Vakyam, the other one is Nisheda Vakyam, and we'll go into that a little bit more. So that's the nature of this prayer. So there, he starts by saying, Pragyana Amshu Pratanaihi. So by the you reveal your presence by the rays of prajnanam. Jnanam means the conscious being that we are, the consciousness. Jnanam. Here, prajnanam, as we saw it before, is it's a special jnanam, because all the laukika jnanam are born out of the prajnanam and dissolve back into it in Triputi. But the conscious being that you are, jnanam, in the form of I know, I know, I know. Ahamasmi sada bhami. So that I know. See this. This is, if you want to talk about an advanced introduction, this is a very good sample of it. We talk about advanced meaning prajnanaihi, which is independent of the Triputi and seer, seen, Triputi, etc. And this is the very basis of it. And so you're saying, oh, they're very interesting, yeah. Wow, I need to understand it. I don't fully understand it, but yeah, I think you have those kinds of feelings. Then the advanced introduction means see it yourself. Do you ever not be the essence of this knowledge? I am aware. I know. Satyam Jnanam. Don't you see this? There's no technical thing about it. This is you. I know. I am the nature of consciousness. You can't even, it's not your property, this is you. You can't get rid of it because you cannot get rid of yourself. That's the only thing that you cannot get rid of is yourself, which is Paramatma. So this is the introduction to it. And so here Adi Shankara says, I am just amazed how you could do this. So then, taking up from here, Swami Akhandananda goes into the, let's go through a little bit more before I do that. So, Pragyana Amshu Pratanaihi Sthirachara Nikara Vyapibhihi. Adi Shankara. He says, the one which is pervading all non-moving and moving things in the whole creation. Non-moving means the one that cannot reflect the consciousness, but it is there, like a table. Moving means the one that reflects the consciousness also, which is all the living beings, because of the Sukshma Sharira. So this is what it means. The entire Srishti is made up of non-moving and moving. That's exactly what happens in our dreams. In the dreams, you see tables, you see cars or whatever, and then you see people. And so the Sat aspect is enjoyed by everything in your dream. Chit aspect of it is enjoyed by a few beings. That's all. But it's the same thing because it is your own consciousness which gives you this feeling of moving and non-moving. And so it is really your own pervadingness of the things around it that makes it real for you, makes it appear real for you. So we have to be careful. So makes it so it's an appearance. The reality is only yours. There's nothing else has a reality. Anyway, we'll go into that later. But here, when explaining this very systematically, Swami Akhandananda gives a comparative lesson in pervasiveness. What does he mean by pervading? Vyapaka, vyapya bhavaha. So this relationship between what is the pervader and what is the pervaded. Let's look into that. What does Vedanta talk about it? So here in the very beginning, he says, let's start with this. The normal thinking is that the subtle objects can pervade gross objects. The example of that is fire, which is a subtle vastu, and a metal piece, which is a gross vastu. And so it is very possible that the fire pervades the metal object and becomes one with it. And so the redness and the heat of the fire becomes one with the metal piece. And the metal piece as though becomes fire with a particular shape. This is the normal understanding of pervaded and pervader. Okay? But here's the problem. In this one, when this process is going on, what happens? You still have two things that are still there. So there is Dvaita, there is the iron piece, and there's the fire. So that's one problem, because this is what we are really trying to understand is the Advaita. And Advaita means Paramarthika Satyam. not Vyavaharika Satyam. Vyavaharika Satyam is based on Bheda, on differences. You cannot have any transaction unless there are two people involved. Then you can have, or two things involved. Then you can have a transaction. But here we are talking about Paramarthika Sat, in which there is no duality. Advaita Satyam. Remember, this is what we are doing. So in Advaita, you cannot have this problem where there is still two objects still left, fire and the metal, number one. Secondly, the problem is that the pervasiveness, or what is the pervasion? I'm not sure what the English word would be. Anyway, this bhava of vyapya vyapaka is transitory. Because the fire can cool, or you can remove the iron from the fire. Either one, it's very temporary. So yes, it's a starting point of this, but it is not what we want to see. Let's go to the next step. The next step is that of the sun and its rays. This is where this phenomena becomes a little bit more subtle and amazing. So it's very interesting. If you were the designer of the whole Srishti, as Ishvara is, you know very well that you have to provide a source of light. No life is possible in complete darkness and nothingness. So if there has to be a Srishti, it's almost like, if you're a computer scientist and you're a hardware designer, you have to start with a central processing unit, CPU, which really generates all the things, all the I/O, all the peripherals, transmission of energy, all of that. So the sun is like a CPU. You have to start with that. Ishvara must have said, this is where I need. He's never going to start. This is the way he is. That's how, but you can visualize the creation. The sun is the starting point of light and heat. Now the question is, the sun being the source of light and heat, how is he going to transmit everything to? So if supposing the sun is there millions of miles away, you and I are here on the earth, how are we going to get the energy from the sun, from the rays? Amshu. Pragyana amshu pratanaihi. So that means that the rays of some kind of a scheme has to be devised where the sun, without changing its position, transmits its light and heat at other places. Isn't it? Just an amazing thing. So you have the transmission of light through waves and all those kinds of things that the scientists can analyze. Packets. What an amazing phenomena. So there you can say there is a pervader and pervaded relationship between the sun and the rays of the sun that fall upon distant objects. Good example, I think. But there also we have the same issue. Not quite as much as in the case of the fire and the ball or iron object. But why not the same? Because the sun, although it is slowly becoming cooler, but not perceptibly, it is always going to be hot. Your normal fire can just get out without any problems, but the sun remains the same. And so this pervaded and pervader and pervaded relationship will stay. Will stay. But there also the duality is very difficult to understand because the sun and its rays are all one. Leave aside the objects. There, of course, there is duality. But the sun and the rays also have a kind of a non-dual function. Anyway, I'm going into too much details, but that is the next level of this understanding of the pervasiveness. Okay. So there is some change there also. The next thing we do is to look at this phenomena in the case of a clay and a vessel. Clay vessel or clay. There we can say that the clay has pervaded the vessel. The vessel, which is a cup that you can use to drink tea from, is pervaded by the thing that the cup is made out of. Let's say just clay for now. So the clay pervades the form. This is a better example of pervader and pervaded. Why is it better? Because at least the duality is gone. The cup and the clay always remain the same. It's the same object. You can call it Vacharambhanam Namadheyam Rittika Ityeva Satyam. You can call it anything. You can call it a cup. So there's some functionality of the cup that a lump of clay does not have. You cannot put water into the lump of clay and drink it, but you can do it in a cup. So there is a certain amount of form and functionality that is added. But really speaking, it is all still the same clay. So there the duality disappears, but now one can argue that even in that case, there is a change of some kind. Change meaning that the clay is no longer a lump of clay, it has become a cup. So there is a change. Change means what? Vikaraha. Vikara means that something has changed. And so that means that the Brahman also has Vikara. Ishvara also has Vikara. And so in Vedanta, this example of the clay and the pots is not taken to be Paramarthika Satyam. So this is what is called Vivarta. It's technically called Vivarta. Vivarta means Rupa Swaswarupa Aparityagena Rupantara Apattihi. It is called Vivarta. That without changing itself, it appears to change. But there is even an appearance of changing, and so there is not only an appearance, you can actually see. So the Vedanta says this is not the final pervasiveness. All right, let's go to the next one. This is getting closer to the truth, and that is the Rajju Sarpa example. In the Rajju Sarpa example, the Rajju, the rope, never really changes itself, even though it appears as a snake, Sarpa. At least in the case of clay and the pot, there is some change. But here there is no change whatsoever. And yet, so you can say that in the case of clay and the pot, there is a touching of the clay and its form. Kind of. In Rajju Sarpa, that is not even there. the slickness of the sarpa never touches the rajju. The movingness of the sarpa never touches the rajju. Never. This is actually, it's all in the mind of the observer. So there we can say the pervaded example is much more appropriate. This is why the Rajju Sarpa example is given. Not the final example, but it is a very helpful example. And this is what we will be studying as we go forward. Then the next one is, now we can rely on the Rajju Sarpa to see how the dream works. Because in the dream what happens is, there is a kind of a creation, not a kind of a creation, it is a creation. Your mind is amazingly capable of creating all kinds of, it's a movie. It's not just a picture, it's a video. See, just to draw, just to have a simple clicking of one picture is one thing. But to make a movie is completely different, much more sophisticated. And that's so the whole dream is really like a movie, like a video. Lighting has to be right, the speed has to be right. All kinds of things have to happen. That's why it becomes believable. It is very believable. In the middle of the night, you see, whoa, wow, what did I just see? What did I just do? And then it just disappears. So the dream example is very much like Rajju Sarpa. So just like in the case of a wrong understanding of the rope, you have some things that occur, shape of it, and you imagine things. This is a poisonous snake, and it's moving. It might have bit me. All kinds of things happen, but nothing happens. So the dream is just like the Rajju Sarpa. This is one of the things. Now, so this is what's called Brahma. Now a very interesting aspect of this. In Brahma is one of two kinds. Okay, so this is where the technicality comes in. So understand this. This is really neat stuff. So Brahma is one of two kinds. One is called Nirupadhika Brahma, and the other one is Sopadhika Brahma. Nirupadhika Brahma and Sa-Upadhika Brahma. Without Upadhi or with Upadhi Brahma. The example of Nirupadhika Brahma is Rajju Sarpa. And to a large extent the Swapnavastha. How? So it means that as long as the ignorance of snake, or rather ignorance of the rope persists, the vision of the snake will persist, right? So for example, supposing you got afraid of the rope and then you moved away from it, And then you're asking for help. Hey, I want some help. There's a snake in the room. I want people to kind of help me. It's a very major problem. Inside the snake, inside a room is not an easy thing to do, as many of us from India have experienced this. So that vision of the snake remains with the person as long as the ignorance of the rope remains. But once somebody says, where? He says, there. He says, oh my gosh, you make a mistake. Here, let's shine a light on it. It's the rope. And then after a little bit of shaking and so on, you say, you know what? You're right. You are right. I made a mistake. When you do that, when the ajnanam of the Rajjukam takes place, there is a complete cessation of the snake vision. You don't even remember, how could I even think about this snake? I can't imagine that. It's gone. You can only see rope. You can never see snake again after you're done. This is an example of Nirupadika Brahma. Now let's look at Sopadika Brahma. And there are many examples, but the one which is most, I think, effective to think about is the blueness of the space. Blueness of the snake, of the space. So then what happens? If you have a child, like we have a 2.5-year-old girl as our granddaughter, Sanya. If you took Sanya and say, Sanya, what is this? She'll say, no, it'll say, what is the blue? Sorry, what is the color? Now the 2.5-year-old knows all about colors, red, yellow, etc. So she will, what will we say? She'll say, this is blue. So you're saying that the sky is blue? She'll say, yeah, sky is blue. Then when she grows up a little bit more, she understands that the blueness of the space is false. It is just an appearance, because you cannot use the blue color for washing your clothes. There's no such thing as a blue color of the space. So she will understand that in a few years. I don't know how long it might take, but she'll do it. Now, what happens is you and I also see the blueness of the space. But do we ever think that the space has become blue? So therefore, even though the appearance of the Brahma persists, but you never get Brahma from it. You cannot say, my gosh, really speaking, the space has permanently become blue. That never happens. Cannot happen. Because you know exactly what is going on. I remember Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, you know, it's very peculiar that Ishvara has made infinity in the form of blueness. When you have no limits to it, for some reason, he has decided blueness should be the color of it. I don't know why. We did it. Just like, you know, when you have something that you want, you're attracted to, it has a good flavor. And it's something that you don't like, it becomes a bad flavor. So that's very fundamental to the order of the universe. So similarly, the order of the universe is that anything which is infinite, like a sea, it has blueness in it. Sky which has blueness in it. So the blueness of it is there, persistent. But do you ever believe? Do you believe that the water is blue? No. This is an example of Sopadika Brahma. So this is an important thing to do, because somehow, and this will be discussed in more detail later on, but this is what I'm saying, that the main answer is given right at the very beginning, and then we kind of go over that in more detail later. So this is an important thing, because somehow you have a feeling, it's not you, but some people have the feeling that once I understand the Atma, then everything will disappear. The world will disappear. This is a big Brahma. It does not happen. Jivan Mukta, the one who has understood the whole thing, Sthita Prajna of the Bhagavad Gita. So Arjuna asks him, Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha. So Krishna has now explained the fundamentals of Vedanta in the chapter 2. Ashochyans and all from the 11th all the way up to what is it? I forget, 60 something. And I think the 56th verse is the Sthita Prajna. So he's explained the whole thing, and Arjuna says, wow, that is just incredible. I understand some of what you're saying. But tell me, one who is a Jivan Mukta, how does he walk? What does he say? What does he look like? And the answer by Krishna is disappointing to him. That, once all the desires are gone, then and so on, that's a separate thing. Anyway, so the idea is that somehow if I become, quote unquote, a realized soul, I will cease to see the world as it is. It's like, and so this is the thing, you somehow, and this is a more important thing, because you feel that, right now I'm not a Jivan Mukta. I'm just a samsari jivaha. Okay, and I'm working towards it slowly, slowly, slowly. One day I will get liberated. This is the thing, which is a wrong thing to think about it. It's the wrong approach. It is not the right approach. That one day I will be free. Why is it a wrong approach? Because it is like saying that right now I think that the sky is blue. One day I will understand that it is not blue. Hey, the sky is not blue should be understood right now. And its persistence of blueness should not prevent you from saying, I am not yet a Jivan Mukta. Yeah, we'll discuss this in more detail later on. So this is the example of Sopadika Brahma. That's all I wanted to say. Very beautiful structure. This is how it goes. So here it is also pointed out, then the next point to this is that Brahman and Vishwa, Brahman, the very content of Ishvara, and the world around us. So you see there is a difference between the words samsara and Vishwa. You already know this, I'm just reviewing it. So Vishwa is the appearance, the blueness. Samsara is the further development of any dukkha as a result of seeing the Vishwa, is called samsara. It means this is a problem. What it means is that the Vishwa that I see, which is a very beautiful thing, as we will see, This doesn't bother me. Should not bother me, it doesn't bother me, and will not bother me at one time. So this is the botheration that I have to remove, not the Vishwa. But the samsara is the superimposition of that this Vishwa causes problems for me. Why? Because it makes me very small. This is the problem. This is what we have to understand. You are part of the Vishwa, you are not small, as we will see. You are the very Vishwa itself. This is what Mandukya is going to talk about in great detail. So we will come to that. So here what it means is that Brahman and Vishwa are not two things. Ishvara and the world are not two things. It is the same thing appearing in slightly different ways. It's kind of like the rays of the sun and the sun are one and the same. They're not two things. This will be a great discussion on all this. I'm just giving you some initial thoughts to this. So we will go over this in more detail. All right, so let's go to the next concept. I'm just giving you some of the concepts like the Nirupadika Brahma, Sopadika Brahma. This is what we are going to concentrate on this advanced course. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So now we go on the commentary on Sthirachara Nikara Vyapibhihi. Sthirachara Nikara. Nikara means the very samuha, the very collection of sthira and chara. Sthira means non-moving, chara means moving. So that's what just the two aspects of the creation. So there it will be pointed out as we go further that so this is in the so in this part of the verse, the Jagrat Avastha is being highlighted. The waking world. That aspect of our relationship with the world is being highlighted, which is Jagrat Avastha. So there it says that this Jagrat Avastha, where it is Thirachara Nikaran Vyapibhihi Lokan. So here the Atma has three stations that it moves from. Three stations. One is the Jagrat Avastha. Avastha means a state. It's almost like you can say it either like a house, or you can look at it as a role. It can be looked upon as a kind of an ornamentation. In any way you can look at it. Like, for example, three kinds of clothing that you wear. My wife sometimes makes fun of me. She says, how many times you're going to change your clothing during the day? And so I am in pajamas when I wake up in the morning. And if a doorbell rings, sometimes it happens. I get, we have a handyman who's working on doing something in the house. When he comes in, and I'm still kind of in my pajamas because I haven't really, changed it, then I feel very funny that I'm in pajamas. And these guys are, they are in working clothes, and they'll say, well, look at this guy. He has it's already 8 o'clock and he's still in his pajamas. So I'm in pajamas. Then I go to a workout. So I put on the workout clothes. So I look completely different with my cap on and my shorts, and my sneakers, and I work out. Then after that, after taking a shower and everything, then I go into some comfortable clothes. And if somebody is coming in to see me, then I'll just be wearing some pants. Otherwise, I'll be wearing some kurta pajama just for lounging. Then in the evening, if we have to go out, I have to change again. So she sometimes looks at me and says, wow, you sure changed a lot of clothes. So this is exactly like it is. Atma has three kinds of poshakas. Poshaka means all the coverings. Sometimes you are putting on pajamas. Sometimes you're putting on work clothes. It's the same person. No person doesn't change. So Parabrahma is has three stations, three poshakas, three movies, three roles that it plays on. Same person. Okay? So now comes an important concept. So listen to this. Parabrahma I'm looking at to see if there's any particular word. No, so this is some Swami Akhandananda's just explanation of it as a concept, which is not specifically given any one word from here. So here's the important concept. He says, Parabrahma. Parabrahma means Paramatma, means Ishvara, means the totality of the Atma. The Atma remains the same, but you can see it as a Vyashti Atma or a Samashti Atma. This is just words. There's no two different ones. It's only the space is only one. You cannot say it's a room space is different than total space, but you can describe the same space in two different aspects of it. So yeah, you can say when you say, like when you say, I don't have enough space. When you're traveling, you say, I don't have enough space. Do you have any space in your carry-on? Can I give you some things? So there you're describing space from one aspect. And then when you're saying the total space, the same space, but you're describing it differently. So the Parabrahma, Paramatma, this is the concept, must be understood as Pratyak Atma for it to be cognized. Parabrahma must be understood as Pratyak Atma, your own Atma. This is going to be a theme which is going to be developed for lots of classes that we're going to do. So please remember this. Not remember, but please make note of it. That's all I'm saying. Why? Because now let's look at the conceptual development of that. So it's not just something that is just said without any proof. You have to understand how. So Swami Akhandananda is saying, listen, look at the basic principle of seeing something. What is the basic principle? The principle is, this is what is called converting everything into aparoksha. Aparoksha is a very important word to be understood, and I think you all do, but just to make sure. So, aparoksha means me. Pratyak Atma. Because paroksha means away from me. I don't understand, like if you're talking about Milwaukee. Milwaukee, I don't see Milwaukee. I've heard of Milwaukee. In fact, I don't think I've ever been there. No reason to go there. But Milwaukee is paroksha. But suppose you go to Milwaukee, then what happens? It is pratyaksha. That means that you can now see things with your own hands, with your own eyes, with your own eyes. Or you can pick up things in your own hand. So now what happens is that until it becomes visible to you, it cannot become aparoksha. Right? So pratyaksha and paroksha have to be converted into aparoksha for you to know it. So for example, a book. So what happens in the book is that your antakarana, mind, and the Vishaya, which is a book, and the entire structure of the pramana, prameya, and antakarana, pramata, antakarana, pramana, and prameya, all aspects of it have to come together. Speaking in everyday English language, you will say that you cannot say, I see a book. So when you say, I see a book, what are the constituents of this? I as a pramata, I am as a seer. I'm referring to myself as a seer. You may not be able to see the book, but I see the book. So that is a seer. Then seeing is the process. Then the book itself must enter into my mind as a form, and then it becomes known to me. So my knowledge of the book cannot happen until the book becomes aparoksha to me. You see that? This is the principle we have to think about it. That I have to, my whole process of experiencing life is I am converting paroksha to aparoksha. Everything has to be, and I do it selectively. I cannot see the whole thing. Actually, I do see the whole thing, but that will be explained later. But for now, I only see some things. But when I see those things, or the same thing is not just seeing, but also hearing, touching, all the sense organs. But the objective of all the sense organs is to convert parokshata and pratyakshata into aparoksha. Only then we can say yes. Did somebody say, did you see the book? You say yes. You cannot say yes until it had become aparoksha to you. Okay? And having understood that, we can now say understanding of Paramatma. It's the same principle. Paramatma, seeing the Paramatma, you cannot quote unquote see or understand Paramatma, Ishvara, Brahman, So, these are just words. Immediately, if somebody asks you, have you seen Ishvara? So you say, no, I haven't seen Ishvara. How about Brahman? Brahman, I don't even know what that word that means. Ishvara, at least God I can see. I understand that. And no, I haven't seen God. What about Brahman? No. Paramatma? No. So for you, not for you personally, but for any one of us that responds by saying no, what it means is Paramatma, Ishvara, Brahman is Paroksha. I am just a everyday jiva, persisting in some things and so on, but I don't know where Ishvara is. I hope he helps me. It's Paroksha. So it is not until see the logic here. This is the important thing to see. You cannot see the book. You cannot say that I saw the book until it became a paroksha to you. So therefore, you cannot say that you understood Paramatma until you make that aparoksha. How are you going to make the aparoksha? How is Ishvara going to become a paroksha? Is he always not going to be paroksha? There the answer is Ishvara is, Paramatma is never paroksha. Never paroksha. So the issue is not bringing Ishvara from parokshatvam to aparokshatvam, not the awareness into non-awareness, into yourself. That's not how it's going to. Seeing the book, you can see that I don't see the book. Often people will say, have you seen that book that I was reading? And you said, no, I don't know, I don't see it. So it's hidden by some walls or it's underneath something. So there is a possibility that the book really may be away from you, and once you see it, then you bring it to yourself. That possibility exists. But in the case of Paramatma, that possibility does not exist. Why? Because Brahman is the nature of Sat. Sat means always there. The only possibility, then you can say, if he is always there, then I don't understand what the issue is. I'm trying to find Brahman, and you are telling me the Brahman is always there, and I don't see Brahman, so what do I do? So what you do is to understand the fact that the very nature of Brahman, the Sat, can only be you. What? Yes. Only you can be the Sat. Not you as a jiva, but you as the conscious being. The jnanam, prajnanam. That person who says, I know, I am. See that I know and I am can never be negated. Never negated. Not possible to negate it. Not possible to dismiss it. That's the only thing which is non-dismissible. That is the nature of the Sat. So therefore, two things. Paramatma, it must be Sat. And you, which is Sat, must be the same. And so the only thing that we have to do is not to find the Brahman later, but to see that Brahman which is already me, I don't yet see. That you can say. So there's a removal of some confusion. That's all that needs to take place. Not finding. So Jivan Mukti is not something in the future. It is to understand that I am already Muktaha. I am already free. And yet because of my many births of taking wrong things and so on, I am denying it. And because of Brahma, avidya kama karma, Adi Shankara is saying this is what happens. That from ignorance comes desire. Desire means that I will do some things and I will become better in the future. Then you start doing it, karma. Avidya kama karma. You have to break that cycle. Say, I don't understand. And so here, Swami Akhandananda says, the only way you will see is if you give up the wrong notion that I'm a limited being. You don't have to acquire unlimitedness. You are already unlimited. But you have to remove the Brahma that I am limited. That's all. This is a very important thing. And so that means that the karma is not useful to me. Doing things is not useful because doing things is only for getting the results later. But to understand, you may have to do some things in order to do the vichara. That's a separate thing. Minor things. But the main thing is to see that my understanding that I'm a limited person is a Brahma. And it's a Sopadika Brahma. That's a very important thing to see. Somehow I have a feeling that I have to completely disappear from this in order to quote unquote realize. My guru is not happy about my even using that. He says, don't use those words, realize. As people do. He's a realized soul. Swami Dayananji used to say, that's not the... You can realize some interest on your principle, but not realize this. But we understand what we mean. To get it. So this is a Nirupadika Brahma. I'm sorry, this is a Sopadika Brahma because even when you feel you are limited, you know you are not limited. And so the only thing that happens is that the remnants of your thought that I am limited will become less. Yes, right now you are not completely persuaded because of the strength of the wrong thinking. So the strength of the wrong thinking has to diminish a little bit. But there's nothing to be done. Something has to be understood. That understanding will take place when you begin to understand the enormity of this beauty. And so that will be a Sopadika Brahma. Very beautiful example of the blueness of the sky. That even when you are, this is going to be a great discussion later on. People will say, then should the Jivan Mukta, does he not have, he or she have likes and dislikes? Should not they all disappear and he should become completely agnostic? No. If the Jivan Mukta comes from Karnataka and is very fond of eating dosa and idli and all those kinds of things, he'll continue to eat dosas and idlis. If he's born in Punjab with having all these dal, roti, pakoras, he'll continue to do that. There's no problem because it is so Padika Brahma. It's not as though I begin to see there's no blueness anymore. I only see. No, you see blueness. But you don't pause at that. Blueness just comes and goes, but it is never going to be blue. Okay, then let's move on in a few more minutes. So he says, now the second line is taken up by Swami Akhandananda. Bhuktva bhogan sthavishtan. Bhuktva, he says, that having experience, he says, look, you are expressing through myself as person who is subject to sukha dukkha of the waking life. Bhuktva bhogan sthavishtan. Bhuktva here means having experienced. So you actually, the experience means that it affects you. This is what exactly how you operate, because you are affected by food and sounds and so on and so forth, as it happens in the Jagrata Avastha. So here Swami Akhandananda makes a very beautiful point. He says that this is how Vedanta explains things. How? So he says the Vedanta, he uses this word this Sanskrit word called pranali. Pranali. Sometimes the word prakriya is also used. So prakriya means that they're somewhat similar but somewhat different also. Pranali means a scheme, a system, the way it explains. This is very fundamental to it. So he explains this. He says that Vedanta believes that yes, you have to understand where you are going. Like supposing you're going from San Jose to Milwaukee. Since we took that example, we'll keep the same name. So you're going from San Jose to Milwaukee. Now, so catching a plane to Milwaukee is needed. You cannot just say, just give me a plane ticket. It says, where to? He says, I don't know. No, you can't do that. You have to be very clear about which airport you're going to. So that one is very clear. But to go to Milwaukee, you have to start in San Jose and describe where in San Jose you are going to, how you are going to go to the airport, which direction you have to go, how is it going to appear to you. So in the Vedanta Pranali, Swamiji says that even though the objective that you are trying to reach is known to you, but your whole focus is understanding where am I now, and to get acquainted with the area that you are in, how to go from San Jose to the airport from your house, all those details you have to know. So therefore, in Vedanta, it never talks about Ishvara first. It talks about you first, your daily experiences. It's like San Jose. You have to understand, who am I? How am I operating? I know where I want to go. That's true. It's not as though I don't have that vision in my mind. But my practicality is to deal with where am I now. So this is what Adi Shankara is saying, that understand how Brahman makes me in the Jagrat Avastha, which is now. To go to Turiya is where I want to go. That comes later. But I must start with where am I now. I am in this Jagrat Avastha at this point. So that's what he says is, Bhogan, Bhuktva Bhogan Stharavishtan. That having Punarapi, he says that what will happen is, you see that you are in this Jagrat Avastha, and you see the next stop you're going to make is this Swapna Avastha. You start with here. It's like going from San Jose, and supposing I'm going to San Francisco airport, although San Jose already has an airport, but it may not go to Milwaukee. So I have to go from San Jose to San Francisco. It's kind of like going from Jagrat Avastha to a Swapna Avastha. Same person. Anyway, he proceeds along those lines. So that's another important concept, that Vedanta always, even though you are searching for Paramatma, but you must understand yourself as you are in order to see Paramatma. Okay, so I think that we have spent enough time on that, and we'll stop at that point and proceed forward in the next class. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Arun, I'm happy you. I didn't realize that. I think you are you part of the WhatsApp group. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm happy you're participating. Kirsten from Italy. So nice to see you. I hope it's not too late for you. Poonam, the word pranali comes in quite often, and he will refer to it again and again. So I'm not sure that on one page, but in several pages. In fact, I think on the first one I will tell you. I assume you have the book by Swami Akhandananda. I think I have that here. Yeah, this is given on page 4. हमारे ज्ञान की प्रणाली वही है कि उसी वस्तु का अपरोक्त ज्ञान होता है जिसके साथ हम अभिन्न हो जाते हैं. So yeah, that's the first usage, but or maybe other usage also. Okay, good. Poonam says, other question is, given our layers of likes and dislikes, I believe we still have to do karmas in terms of prayers and listening to Vedantic explanations. Now, of course, listening to Vedantic explanations has to be the primary goal of sadhakas. And yes, all the other aspects of life in terms of keeping your mind pure and focused are very important, no doubt about it. But those are all what would be called sahakari karanams. They are supporting karanams. The primary karanam is vichara and study for a student of Vedanta. Yes. Yeah, the book that I'm talking about is Poonam, is the Agama Prakaranam, the very first book by Swami Akhandananda. And the same thing on by Swami Dayanandji also, book number 1. I have it on the table there. So yeah, we are starting with the Agama Prakarana of the Agama Prakarana is the one that includes all of the Mandukya Vakyas. So it is wrapping around the Mandukya. And then that is set aside, and the other 3 Prakaranas just describe the commentary on that. So yeah, we are still studying. We're starting the Agama Prakarana. Very nice to see you all. Wonderful. And once again, if you had any questions, please don't hesitate to give me an email. I'll be happy to go over that. Okay, if there are no other questions, then hopefully I'll see you next week. Hari Om.